There are children who live right within their father's house, sharing the same table and sleeping under the same roof, yet their hearts have long been shuttered. There are requests that sound like mere transactions, but are in truth a blade through honor and kinship. And there are fathers not slain by sword or spear, but by a sentence cold as stone.
Father, give me my share of the property now.
It is the story of a father with 2 sons, an estate, and a road stretching out before his gate. The road he gazes upon every morning, as if by looking long enough, he could pull a soul back home. That father had 2 sons. The eldest was near, his feet bound to the fields, his breath following the rhythm of the harvest, his hands familiar with the plow handle and the rope. The younger son was near yet far. His eyes often lingered at the edge of the horizon, his ears tilted toward the sound of strange carriages on the road, his heart like an empty bag, always demanding to be filled. Ordinary days passed with the sound of tools striking the soil, servants calling to one another, and birds perching on the eaves. In that setting, the younger son would often go near the gate, leaning against a wooden post, gazing at the dusty road. Whenever a caravan of travelers passed by, he watched them as if watching a promise. When the father called him to eat, he turned back more slowly, as if every step were a moment of reluctance. Then, one afternoon, the younger son stepped into the courtyard and stood before his father, no rambling. His voice was short and clipped, as if rehearsed.
Father, give me the share of the estate that belongs to me.
No one in the courtyard could move at once. The father looked down at his own hands, hands once used to sharing bread, sharing chores, sharing wisdom, now forced to divide an inheritance while he still drew breath. In that place, dividing the estate while the father lived was more than a matter of money. It was a declaration. I want my life severed from yours. The father looked up at his younger son. He did not raise his voice to reprimand. He only gazed long, as if searching for a crack of hesitation in those eyes. But the younger son stood tall, arms crossed over his chest, the gesture of a man who had already decided. In the days that followed, the father began dividing the estate between his 2 sons. Ledgers were brought out and placed on the table. Plots of land were surveyed and their boundaries redrawn. Livestock were driven into the pens to be counted one by one. Silver coins were poured out, stacked into neat piles, each one heavy and cold. The father sat down to do it himself. He read every line, signed his name, pressed his seal, and handed over the portions. He did not call for a steward to do it in his stead. He wanted to hand over those shares with his own hands, for he understood that each stroke of the pen was a piece of his life he was cutting away for his children. He did this so his son would see clearly the price of his request, and so the entire household would know he did not shirk his duty as a father. On the day of departure, the younger son gathered everything that could be converted into wealth and tied it into a cloth bundle. The knots were fastened quickly. He did not linger at the dining table. He walked out the gate while the sun was still low. Road dust clung to the hem of his new robe at the very first steps. The father stood there alone. He did not stop him. He only watched until the son's figure vanished completely. The younger son left for a far country. From that day on, he slept without hearing his father's footsteps in the courtyard. He ate without meeting his father's gaze across the table. He moved about with the bundle of money in his hand as if it were his only support. At home, there was one person missing at every meal. The empty space at the table remained day after day. The eldest son still went to the fields, still worked, and still returned on time. But small things began to change. He set down his bowl and chopsticks with a heavier hand. He pulled his chair closer to the table, occupying more space. When a servant accidentally mentioned his brother's name, he turned instantly, his voice sharp, silencing the house. The father was different. Every morning he went to the gate. He went alone. He stood leaning toward the road, hand shading his eyes, searching from one hillside to the next. Then he turned back into the house, continuing his work as usual. As evening fell, he went out again. He stood until his shadow stretched long before the gate. Without a word, the whole household saw this habit repeat, as steady as a required task. And so the knot tightened. One son took the estate and left. One son stayed but closed his heart in small ways. And a father who had just given away his portion, yet began a wait with no end in sight. The far country had everything to make one forget quickly. The streets were crowded with people. Laughter rang out loud. When pockets were full, many doors swung wide. The younger son entered that place with his heavy cloth bundle. He rented lodgings, bought furnishings, and paid without counting. Silver left his hand by the handful. With every handful that fell, a chorus of voices arose. Friend, brother, generous one. Feast followed feast. The platters were always full. Wine flowed constantly. At night he moved through the crowds, his hand touching cups, touching the shoulders of strangers, touching items bought in haste. Those who never knew his name before began to call it out quickly, for that name was now tied to meals, music, and payment. But the silver bundle did not refill itself. One day he sat down, opened the cloth, and poured the silver onto the table to count. He flipped the bundle, smoothing every fold, searching as if a single coin might still be snagged in a corner. The piles of silver had grown thin. He began to sell the things he had once bought in haste. There were days he stood before one of his possessions, gazing at it for a long time, letting out a sigh, then carrying it away to trade for a few coins to stretch out one more night. Then a famine arose in that land. The city turned its face. Market stalls grew sparse. Bread became something people hid beneath their cloaks. Those who once sat at the same table began to place their hands over their own pockets when they saw him approach. The younger son sought out an acquaintance, stepped over the threshold, and spoke a plea. He stopped when he saw the other man's gaze sweep from his face down to his clothes. The door pulled shut. The lock clicked. He knocked on other doors. At some houses, the sound of knocking brought total silence. Others opened only a crack, took one look, and slammed shut. The road remained crowded, but a void opened up around him. The cries of friend that once rang out were heard no more. The first night he slept on the street. His back met the cold stone. He curled his body, pulling his clothes tight, but the wind still snaked through the thin fabric. In the darkness, the growl of his stomach was louder than the footsteps of passers-by. He lay still, eyes wide, staring into the black void before him. Not until the sky paled did he sit up, pressing his hands against the ground to stand. In the morning, he dragged himself to where people gathered for work. He stood amidst the unemployed. Everyone pushed forward. Everyone raised their hands, shouting the trades they knew. He raised his hand too. Someone brushed his hand down. Someone looked past his face and turned away as if he were invisible. He remained there, hand raised, until a man of that country passed by, stopped, looked him over from head to toe, and pointed straight at him. The man did not ask his name, he only signaled for him to follow. He followed in silence. They walked through narrow alleys down to the lowlands. The air there was damp and heavy with a stench. The foul smell arrived long before the fence came into view. At the house, the master led him to the far side, pointed at a pigsty, and said curtly,
"Go out there. Feed the pigs."
The younger son stood still for a beat. He looked at the black mud beneath his feet, at the pigs crowding behind the fence. Then he nodded and stepped down. Mud clung to his feet at the very first step. The thick sound of grunting filled the air. Flies swarmed his face and hands. The master turned and walked away as if the transaction were complete. From then on, every day was the same. He poured feed into the troughs. He herded the pigs away from the deep mud. He cleared the dung and shoveled the mire away. His hands were stained all day long. His clothes dried and then soaked again, the smell never leaving him. Some days the master never came. Other days he appeared only once, tossed a bag of carob pods to the ground, said a few words and left.
Feed them well.
He did not ask where the boy slept. He did not ask how he ate. The younger son looked at that food, the dry, hard carob pods he had only seen fed to animals before. Now he stood by the trough, watching the pigs jostle for their share. He swallowed hard, his fingers nearly touching a pod smeared with mud, then pulled back. Sometimes he leaned close to the trough, looking at the scraps mixed with filth, the dirty water rippling around the pigs' snouts. His fingertips trembled with hunger. But no one gave him anything. There was no separate portion, no bowl, no call to a meal. He stood by the trough like a nameless laborer, watching the pigs eat before him. From then on, he spoke less and less, not because he was guarded, but because there was no one around to listen. At night, he lay beside the pen, hearing the pigs stir in the dark. The sky above was full of stars, but there was no roof. The cold wind bit through his clothes. He rolled over, then sat up again, back against the fence, eyes looking out into the distance, seeing only the night. In his mind, images of his father's house rose clearly. The table, the footsteps of the servants, the scent of fresh bread. They returned in waves, clinging to him, refusing to let go. One night, before the sky had fully brightened, he sat up abruptly. His hands rested on his knees. He looked down at his hands, hands that once pried open bags of silver and counted every coin, now calloused and roughened. He sat still for a long time. Then he came to himself. He wrote no letter. There was no paper. He spoke to himself, each sentence like a testimony before a court. How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare? But here I am, perishing with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him,
Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.
From that moment, there were no more detours. To stay was to continue fading away beside the pigsty. To go back was to walk toward the gate and face the gaze of the father he had wounded. He stepped out of the pen, never looking back. When the sun rose, he was already on the road. Dust clung to his feet. His tattered clothes brushed against the grass by the path. Along the way, he stopped to beg for water, for a scrap of bread. Some people stepped aside. Some looked and remained silent. Some tossed him a little something, as if to a common wayfarer. He gathered it up, ate in haste, then stepped once more toward his father's house. The day he saw his father's roof from afar, his pace slowed. He pulled down his tattered hem and smoothed the front of his tunic, as if trying to hide the stench that had clung to him for so long. His mouth whispered the prepared lines, each word spoken, then swallowed back.
Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.
Having said this, he bowed his head and walked toward the gate. But at the gate stood a man who had been there for many days. While the son was still a long way off, the father saw him, not when he reached the courtyard, but while he was still a staggering figure on the dusty road. The father did not wait. He ran. An elderly man running down a dusty road. His long robe snagged at his feet, yet he ran on. He did not stop to adjust it. The servants in the courtyard watched. Some froze. Some covered their mouths in shock. The father rushed forward, filled with compassion, threw his arms around his son's neck and kissed him. Road dust settled on the father's robe. The stench of the pigsty clung to his hands. He held on, gripping tightly, as if fearing that if he let go, the boy would vanish again. The younger son went rigid for a beat, then collapsed. He spoke the exact words he had rehearsed, his breath broken by exhaustion.
Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you.
Before he could finish, the father turned sharply and called out, his voice booming like a command through the house.
Quick! Bring the best robe and put it on him, put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet.
Bring the fattened calf and prepare it for the feast. Let's have a feast and celebrate.
For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.
Everything happened at once. Servants ran, the robe was brought, the ring was slipped onto his finger, shoes were fitted onto cracked feet. In the courtyard the noise rose, knives clattered, the hearth glowed red, the scent of roasted meat drifted on the wind. The atmosphere of the house shifted entirely, from silence to vibrant bustle. The younger son stood in the courtyard like one waking from a long darkness. The father walked beside him, his hand still resting on the son's shoulder, never leaving, holding him in the house as one holds a person just brought back from the brink of loss. Meanwhile, out in the fields, the eldest son was still working. He did not yet know that a celebration had broken out within the house. As the sun dipped low, the eldest son returned from the fields. His clothes were soaked with sweat. Dust from the straw still clung to his hands and wrists. He walked along the familiar path with steady strides, his eyes fixed straight ahead, as they were every day. But before he could even reach the gate, his ears caught unfamiliar sounds. From within the courtyard came the echoes of flutes, the beat of tambourines, and the swell of laughter, rising together like a wave. He slowed his pace, then stopped entirely. He did not stop because of weariness. He stopped as if he had encountered an invisible barrier. He tilted his head, looking toward the house. Torchlight flickered against the walls, shadows stretched and wavered as people rose and sat around the table. The scent of roasted meat drifted on the wind as far as the path, settling over the smell of earth and straw on his own body. The eldest son called for a servant. His voice was low and clipped.
What is going on?
The master has killed the fattened calf to welcome your brother back safely.
The eldest son did not take another step, his jaw set firmly. His hands, which had been hanging loose at his sides, now tightened into fists. He stood just outside the entrance, looking into the courtyard. In the torchlight, he saw the fine robe on his brother's shoulders. The firelight glinted off the new ring. Laughter burst out around the feast table. He turned his face away. He stood outside in the darkness, letting the music and the scent of roasted meat wash over the gate, as if there were no place for him. The father was in the courtyard, amidst the clatter of dishes and the sound of laughter. But he looked around and realized there was another void. The eldest son was not at the feast. He left his seat and stepped outside. He crossed the threshold, approached the eldest son, and called,
"My son, come and join the feast."
The eldest son did not turn fully. He stood staring at the ground. The words came out sharp and fast.
All these years I have slaved for you. I never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But this son of yours, who has devoured your wealth with harlots, now that he returns, you kill the fatted calf for him.
The father heard it all, then took half a step closer. His voice dropped, speaking almost in a whisper of entreaty.
My son, you are always with me. Everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate. We had to rejoice. For this brother of yours was dead and is alive again.
The eldest son stood still. He did not step inside. He did not leave. The wind blew through the courtyard, tilting the torch flames. The shadows of the two men stretched long across the ground. The father stood in the darkness with the eldest son. At that very same gate, he had run to welcome the younger son. The truth that the story lays down is this: there are two ways of being lost. There are those lost by distance. They leave home, taking their portion, living as they please, spending until there is nothing left to lean on. They fall so low they must look at a pig's trough and weigh every scrap of food. There are also those lost by proximity. They remain in the house, they work, they keep the rules, but in their hands is a ledger. Every time another is shown mercy, it becomes a bitter pill to swallow. The father in the story goes out to find both. He runs down the road to welcome the one who went far. He also steps out into the darkness to call the one standing outside. And today, the story touches very close to home. Some enter the far country through a screen. Fingers swipe, notifications appear, praise pours in, the crowd calls their name, everything moves so fast. Then one day, the account is empty. Strength is spent, reputation falls, friends vanish. They sit alone in a room, picking up a phone only to set it down again, hungry in a different sense, empty-minded in another. Others remain in the house of God, in the church, in service, in discipline. They do many things, they keep many rules, but their hearts are shuttered. They are used to standing in the right position. They are used to being recognized. When they see a failure being restored, they feel their own portion is being encroached upon. The story stops at the threshold to ask the listener directly, if you are the younger son, do you dare to arise and return? If you are the elder son, do you dare to step into the house and call out the word brother once again? The father stood at the gate. He ran, he embraced, he restored. He also stepped outside to call the one still standing in the shadows. The door remains open. The final step belongs to the children.
Hi everyone, I'm Caleb. If you've ever been lost like I was, don't wait until you've lost everything to come back. Admitting you're wrong doesn't make you weak. It's the first step toward getting your life back on the right track.
If this message spoke to you, please hit like, leave a comment telling me whether you relate more to the younger son or the older son, and subscribe to the channel for more Bible stories told in a simple way that connects with everyday life.